The industries that fueled the long economic expansion after World War II, automobiles, steel, rubber, electrical apparatus, consumer electronics, telephone, but also petroleum, perfectly fit the Kondratiev cycle. Footnote: petroleum, which contrary to common belief was the first one to start declining. In fact, petroleum ceased to be a growth industry around 1950. Since then, the incremental unit of petroleum needed for an additional unit of output, whether in manufacturing and transportation or in heating and air conditioning, has been falling, slowly at first, but rapidly since 1973. End of footnote. Technologically, all of them go back to the fourth quarter of the 19th century, or at the very latest, to before World War I. In none of them has there been a significant breakthrough since the 1920s, whether in technology or in business concepts. When the economic growth began after World War II, they were all thoroughly mature industries. They could expand and create jobs with relatively little new capital investment, which explains why they could pay skyrocketing wages and workers' benefits and simultaneously show record profits. Yet, as Kondratiev had predicted, these signs of robust health were as deceptive as the flush on a consumptive's cheek. The industries were corroding from within. They did not become stagnant or decline slowly. Rather, they collapsed as soon as the oil shocks of 1973 and 1979 dealt them the first blows. Within a few years, they went from record profits to near bankruptcy. As soon became abundantly clear, they will not be able to return to their earlier employment levels for a long time, if ever. The high-tech industries too fit Kondratiev's theory. As Kondratiev had predicted, they have so far not been able to generate more jobs than the old industries have been losing. All projections indicate that they will not do much more for long years to come, at least for the rest of the century. Despite the explosive growth of computers, for instance, data processing and information handling in all their phases, design and engineering of both hardware and software, production, sales and service, are not expected to add as many jobs to the American economy in the late 1980s and early 1990s as the steel and automotive industries are almost certain to lose. But the Kondratiev theory fails totally to account for the 40 million jobs which the American economy actually did create. Western Europe, to be sure, has so far been following the Kondratiev script, but not the United States, and perhaps not Japan either. Something in the United States offsets the Kondratiev long wave of technology. Something has already happened that is incompatible with the theory of long-term stagnation. Nor does it appear at all likely that we have simply postponed the Kondratiev cycle. For in the next 20 years, the need to create new jobs in the U.S. economy will be a great deal lower than it has been in the last 20 years, so that economic growth will depend far less on job creation. The number of new entrants into the American workforce will be up to one-third smaller for the rest of the century, and indeed through the year 2010, than it was in the years when the children of the baby boom reached adulthood, that is 1965 until 1980 or so. Since the baby bust of 1960 to 61, the birth cohorts have been 30% lower than they were during the baby boom years. And with the labor force participation of women under 50 already equal to that of men, additions to the number of women available for paid jobs will from now on be limited to natural growth, which means that they will also be down by about 30%. For the future of the traditional smokestack industries, the Kondratiev theory must be accepted as a serious hypothesis, if not indeed as the most plausible of the available explanations. And as far as the inability of new high-tech industries to offset the stagnation of yesterday's growth industries is concerned, Kondratiev again deserves to be taken seriously. For all their tremendous qualitative importance as vision makers and pace-setters, quantitatively the high-tech industries represent tomorrow rather than today, especially as creators of jobs. They are the makers of the future rather than the makers of the present. But as a theory of the American economy that can explain its behavior and predict its direction, Kondratiev can be considered disproven and discredited. The 40 million new jobs created in the U.S. economy during a Kondratiev long-term stagnation cannot be explained in Kondratiev's terms. I do not mean to imply that there are no economic problems or dangers, quite the contrary. A major shift in the technological foundations of the economy, such as we are experiencing in the closing quarter of the 20th century, surely presents tremendous problems, economic, social, and political. We are also in the throes of a major political crisis, the crisis of that great 20th century success, the welfare state, with the attendant danger of an uncontrolled and seemingly uncontrollable but highly inflationary deficit. There is surely sufficient danger in the international economy with the world's rapidly industrializing nations